Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 14.7 Beta 2 has been out for a few days, along with iOS 14.6 that's been out for a couple weeks at this point, and I wanted to talk about the overall experience, any remaining bugs, what to expect as far as iOS 15, and more. And the first thing is iOS 14.7 Beta 2 has, like I said, been out for a few days, but people are saying where is iOS 14.7 Public Beta 2, or that they're not seeing the update when they go to General and Software Update. And this is because Apple never released a public beta this time around. Generally, they'll release them unless they find a problem. And so many people have been reporting that there is a problem with this and that it's creating a SIM error where maybe your network won't work at all. So for example, you'll see here on 9to5Mac, it says iPhone users reporting SIM failure error after updating. And because of this, it seems that Apple delayed putting out the public beta so it wasn't creating an issue. Even those that aren't getting the error sometimes are saying that the actual switching between 5G and 4G or just networking in general isn't working at all. So that's definitely a problem for some. I have not experienced it on my iPhone 12 Pro Max, where I've been using iOS 14.7 Beta 2 since it came out, and it's been okay for me. But some people are not having that experience, and it's creating a big problem. Many people were saying that it has to do with those using an eSIM instead of a physical SIM, but others are saying with a physical SIM they're having the issue too. So it's definitely why they delayed it at this point. Now, as far as using betas, that's why I generally caution people in using betas. If they update this, maybe they have the SIM error, their phone becomes unusable. Now you actually have to downgrade using a computer. That's the only way to downgrade this currently. So they could update that with iOS 15, for example, but right now the only way to downgrade this is to hook it up to a Mac or Windows computer and use Finder or iTunes to downgrade this so that you can actually go back to a workable version. So that's when I generally caution people using betas. And so with iOS 15 Beta 1 coming out on Monday generally after Apple's WWDC keynote, normally I would hold off on that and see how stable it is. Usually for the first couple of betas, it's not very stable, and it's bad enough many times where I've just put it on a phone I don't use regularly, or I'll downgrade it because it's so bad. That's normally how it is. So keep that in mind when using betas. Now, something Apple has actually fixed has to do with macOS. So if you have a Mac that was having maybe those issues where people were saying it was reading and writing from the SSD too much on an M1 Mac, Apple fixed that with macOS 11.4. So that's something they updated with the previous update that came out to the public. So that's the current version. If you have an M1 iMac, MacBook Pro, or Mac Mini, or MacBook Air, that will fix that problem and prolong the SSD and make sure that it lasts through over time or throughout time as you use it. So that's something that they fixed with that, which is good to see. Now, as far as iOS 14.6, well, it's been out for a few days, and it's really hit or miss depending on who you ask based on some of the things with it. For example, some people with iPhone battery cases, for example, are saying that the battery isn't showing up properly. Now, quite a few people are reporting that the phone is getting excessively warm on iOS 14.6 for some reason. Maybe it wasn't before, but now with just using it for regular tasks, maybe in the apps you've always used, it would get warm. Someone else also reported on the community poll that when they're using the podcast app, Apple's revamped this app to be a little bit more modern, have some more features, and also add subscriptions in the future. For some reason, the phone is just getting really, really warm. And so that's a problem because it uses the CPU more, which can slow down the phone in general. So it tries to cool itself, it can dim the display, and also it can reduce battery life. So people are saying that in iMessages or in iMessage, when typing a long message, sometimes it can sort of freeze up or just not respond well. Scrolling speeds could be very stuttery or just very slow, and people are experiencing lockups. Those that are generally having problems with the battery as well. And this has been mentioned recently by a lot of people all of a sudden, where about 50% of people using iOS 14.6 are experiencing excessive battery drain. And this is a problem, obviously, because you're not getting the battery life you would expect. So something is causing this. Generally, when your phone is getting warm, the CPU is working harder, and it's using more power to do that. And so there's definitely something going on in the background causing this. Whether it's specific apps or something they changed is hard to say, but the good news is, for the most part, it seems to be fixed in iOS 14.7, according to most people. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. Now, as far as the remaining issues with Bluetooth, that continues to be an issue with 14.6. So Bluetooth, maybe your AirPods Pro, AirPods, or maybe you're using a third-party Bluetooth device, something like that. It can be a problem. You'll see it's not even connecting yet for some reason. Sometimes with multiple devices around, it's a problem, but right now it's not connecting for some reason. So that can be an issue. Let's try it again. And there we go. So sometimes it's an issue on 14.6. This iPhone 11 is running 14.6. And then also people are experiencing Wi-Fi issues still with it. So these are things Apple needs to resolve, which many people are saying are resolved with 14.7 Beta 2. So on iOS 14.7 Beta 2, people are experiencing problems with it, but very minimal problems. So that SIM card error is the main one that people are having issues with, whether that be an issue with maybe your signal, and generally you can fix it by turning on airplane mode and turning it back off. It resets and then works again. So that generally fixes a lot of those problems. Now, another thing people are experiencing is notifications not making sounds or alerting them when they come in. So that's only on 14.7 Beta 2. It seems to be a small bug that some people are seeing, and those are really the only two major problems people are reporting with 14.7 Beta 2. So notifications, maybe when you're locking your phone, it did make the sound for me, so sometimes people are just not hearing that. So that's only a small problem, and of course you want to report that in the feedback app, but in general it seems to be pretty stable for most. So 14.7 Beta 2 seems to work out many bugs and has been pretty stable overall for me. I haven't had a single freeze, lockup, crash, or anything like that, and it's responded really, really well. So no issues for me there. It's been super smooth, and it should be at this point, since iOS 15 is only a few months away from releasing to the public, and we'll see our first beta in a day or so. So that makes a lot of sense. It should be pretty solid at this point. Now, as far as green tint, in the YouTube community poll, there was not a single report of green tint on iOS 14.6 or 14.7. Now, that does not mean it's not happening, but no one mentioned it in the YouTube community poll. So that generally lets me know that it's actually a very small problem, since people aren't complaining about it. Generally, those that are having issues will report it more there than anywhere else. So that seems to be a good sign. Generally, I'll have one or two people report it at minimum, and then sometimes more. It just depends on the time. Now, as far as iPadOS 14.7 Beta 2, I've been running it on the M1 iPad Pro. Performance, of course, is great on this, but it's been super smooth. I've had zero problems with it whatsoever, and it's been pretty solid overall. As far as my battery life is concerned, we'll take a look at battery life here and then battery life on the others. But over the last 10 days, I'm getting a couple hours a day of use and generally charging it every couple days. Normally I'll get about 8 hours of screen on time, 10 hours of screen on time, and that's pretty good for an iPad. However, I would like to see it improve in the future with iPads, since the M1 in the MacBook Pro, for example, can get up to 20 hours of screen on time. So that's just a limitation of the size of the battery at this point, I think, and the smaller design, but it's been really solid for me on the iPad Pro, thankfully. Now, as far as battery life, that's the number one complaint of iOS 14.6 for about 50%. Like I said, some people are only getting through half the day with it, so that's definitely a problem for a lot of people. However, a lot of people say it's great as well, so it's really hit or miss, and it seems like those that have their phone warming up or maybe freezing up are the ones having that problem. Otherwise, most people are not having it that I hear from anyway. So it's really hit or miss. Maybe it's an app specifically that's causing it. Now, as far as 14.7 Beta 2 battery life, well, I've been running Beta 1 and Beta 2. My battery health is at 100%. And let's go back here, take a look at the last 10 days. And yesterday I had 3 hours and 6 minutes of screen on time, or 9 minutes of screen off time. The day before, 4 hours and 27 minutes of screen on time, 18 minutes of screen off time, and I only used about 50% of my battery. Each one of these days I was around 50, even a little bit less than that, and I'm getting 8 to 10 hours of screen on time easily with this update. So it's actually pretty good. That's consistent. It's better than 14.6 for me, or even previous versions, so I think 14.7 really fixes that. There are a couple reports of poor battery life on this version, but most say it's pretty good. And overall performance seems to be pretty good across the board. Not just my iPhone, but older iPhones, going back to the iPhone 6S Plus, for example. Those that are actually running the betas are saying it's quite good, and Apple isn't slowing anything down that we can tell or anything like that. Now, as far as should you install iOS 14.7 Beta 2, well, if you're a beta tester and you're a developer, you probably already have. However, if you want to try a public beta, maybe this coming week we'll see that. Although on Monday, like I've said for quite some time now, on Monday, June 7th, we'll have iOS 15 Beta 1, usually released to developers. Generally, they will not release the public beta for a couple weeks until it's basically stable enough to be good on most devices. So I wouldn't really hesitate to install iOS 14.7 Beta 2 if it comes out to a public release. Or maybe they'll just skip to Beta 3, which I think is more likely, and then release public Beta 2 to go along with that. So we should see not only iOS 15 this week with Beta 1, but we should also see iPadOS 15 Beta 1, watchOS 8 Beta 1, and probably some more. tvOS as well, maybe HomePodOS, for example, and then macOS 12. So all of those betas should be out, and then Apple will release 14 as well, 14.7 most likely sometime this week, with those betas and new versions going all the way till September, till we have iOS 15 released to the public. So that seems likely as far as when those come out. So you definitely could install that version, and then again, Monday will be the big day where we see all of the new features of the upcoming OS. Now let's take a look at some of the YouTube community poll comments. So we'll go to YouTube. The YouTube community poll at this time has 13,000 votes, so thanks to everyone that voted. It's always incredible to see that many votes in just about a day or so, or 13 hours at the time of recording this video. And 15% of you said that it was great, 6% said it was terrible, 5% said okay but some bugs, 5% of you are on Beta 1 still, and 68% of you are on 14.6 or older, which makes the most sense. A lot of people don't want to run betas, or they're waiting for iOS 15 betas, for example. Now there's 141 comments. Let's take a look at some of those. So we'll go into the comments. We'll sort them by newest first. I wish they could sort them by oldest first, but we can go to the bottom and go up that way. But let's take a look at about 10 of them. Riker says, I'm on iOS 14.7 Beta 1 on a 2020 SE. The Wi-Fi is extremely annoying. It'll be connected and perfectly fine, but the connection speed tanks. Turning off and back on doesn't matter. It does it any time of the day. Arpan says better performance than 14.6 iPhone 8 Plus. The RetroTech says using iOS 14.7 Beta 2 on my iPhone 12 mini, haven't encountered many or no bugs. However, I have somewhat poor battery life. Infrarutzer says, I'm using an eSIM, didn't get any pop-up whatsoever, but my cellular connectivity is just broken. I'm losing signal quite often, and luckily I can fix it by turning on and off the airplane mode a couple times. Other than that, it's stable and battery life is great. Definitely better than Beta 1. Have a great day or a nice day or night. Thank you. Fiend Fortnite said, iOS 14.6 on my iPad Air 4. It's really great, no issues, but the main problem is that my screen is really not responsive. It creates ghosting issues, and I don't know if it's mine, but I will soon factory reset my device, then see if any changes or will return it back. I think that's probably not the display. I would wait for iOS 14.7 and see if that's actually fixed. Braden Davis says it's been great for me on my iPhone 12. No issues at all. Can't wait for iOS 15. Joey Appleseed says running iOS 14.6 on my iPhone 11, battery life is very good and I haven't ran into any bugs that I've noticed. I'm very happy at this point. Vasile Vatafu says, so far on my iPhone 11 Pro Max, it seems to be good. A few bugs are present. Battery life, same as Beta 1 or 14.6. This release, 14.7, will be focused on security and solving some bugs. Thumbs up, Aaron, and for his channel. Thank you. Robotnik says, I'm on iOS 14.6 still, but I'm having issues. The podcast app makes my phone overheat to the point of limiting screen brightness. Max says, I'm on iOS 14.6, and it's great on my iPhone XR, but on my iPad Air 4th Gen, iPadOS 14.6, when I'm watching YouTube on Safari, it has a yellow line on top of the screen, and my brother has this issue too. Could be something YouTube is actually doing, so we'll have to see if it's an update they push, or could be something with Safari as well. So that's it for iOS 14.7 Beta 2 and iOS 14.6. I know many of us are looking forward to see what Apple has on Monday with iOS 15, for example, and I've covered a lot of those things to be, or what we might expect with those in prior videos, so be sure to check those out. Also, they could be announcing a new MacBook Pro, for example, so hopefully they'll announce some new hardware. They do that every once in a while at WWDC, so hopefully we'll see some of that. But of course, I'll be doing a review of iOS 15 and iPadOS 15 and everything new and those sorts of things on Monday after the event, and Tuesday and the following days from there. Let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below. And of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.